you shouldn't be advocating for yourself once or twice a year when you want something. You got to lay that foundation all year long. Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a free resource for women who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Each week, we get real and talk about the things that hold us back and how we can overcome them and keep climbing to the top. And the top is however you define it. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Consider this podcast your secret weapon. You will learn from the best in the business and be able to take immediate action with all the advice that you hear. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, a leadership development coach and consultant. I've worked in sports for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent working for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Cubs. After 15 years of working in the front office, I took a leap of faith and I started my own business. Friends, as a Black woman in sports, I know that the industry can take a toll on your confidence and sometimes leave you feeling defeated. Join me each week so I can support you on your journey. I promise you, each week you will feel stronger and more confident than the week before. So let's get started with this week's episode. If you are listening to this episode when it airs, there are only 16 days left in 2022. I want to say basic things like, can you believe how quickly the year went by? Can you believe? But it did. It went by so quickly. I had to say it. All right. So you were probably thinking about what you want your career to look like in 2023. A lot of us have to do work on our reviews, right? Our annual reviews in October or November, which means you have to evaluate your performance. So it's only natural for you to take a look back. And then after you do that, you want to look forward. And what is your next year going to look like? You want to plan your future. As you start to map out what you want to accomplish next year, I want to help you avoid some common mistakes that we all tend to make. Some of these mistakes I've made in my career. Some were made by my clients. What I want to do is help you avoid them so you can go further faster. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about 10 mistakes to avoid making in 2023 so you can have your best year yet. Avoiding these mistakes will ensure that you no longer feel like your voice isn't being heard at work. It will help you avoid feeling stuck. Oh, nothing is worse than feeling like you are stuck at work and you cannot move forward with whatever you try. It will help you feel like you are no longer on that hamster wheel when it comes to career growth. Listen, we are high achieving women. We are not here to be stuck at a certain level. That's not what we want to do. Now, we don't want to be content. We want to grow in our career. We have big goals. We want to achieve them. Now, let me say this. There is nothing wrong with wanting to stay at a certain level. Have a stress-free job. We all want a stress-free job, but have a job where, I'm not trying to climb the ladder. I want to stay at the managerial level, and that's what I like to do. I want to be, at the assistant level. That's what I like to do. There is nothing wrong with that, right? Success looks different for everyone. I believe that you are listening to this podcast episode. Thank you for joining, because you want to go further in your career. You don't want to stay where you are. You want to make an impact. We spend so much time at work, so much of our time at work. So you aren't here to just be content. You are here to make an impact. You are here to make a name for yourself and your organization. Both things can be true. I'm excited to share these with you. And one of the biggest reasons I'm excited to share these, you have control over these tools that I'm going to share with you. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, let's do this. Number one mistake that we make is not knowing your worth. You can't rely on others to tell you. It is critical for your success, for you to understand and know your worth. And the biggest thing is believe your worth. There are so many resources out there. I love to work with my clients to help them paint that picture of, yes, this is what you're worth. This is what you need to go after. This is what you need to ask for. And here are all the receipts to back it up. So you want to spend some time Maybe you have some time this year towards the end of the year, depending on what your year looks like, what season you're in for your organization. But if you have some free time, you want to reflect and look back on what you accomplished. You want to talk to people who do the job that you do. You want to talk to your network. You want to talk to a mentor. You want to talk to a coach. You want to talk to somebody to understand your worth. Now, you have to do the work, but being able to have someone to support you and create that story that goes along with your worth, all of the receipts, as they say, you want to work with somebody just to bounce it off of them. That's one of the things I love doing with my clients. On the 19th, or unless you're on the VIP waiting list, then it'll be the 18th. But on the 19th, I'm releasing some of my favorite offer, my favorite coaching program that I work on with my clients, which is a New Year vision strategy. If knowing your worth is something that you need to work on, that's what I would work on with you if we were to work together, is to really put that in some sort of strategy and give you a step-by-step plan so you can figure out your worth. Because when you know your worth and when you are at work, there is something about that confidence that you can't shake that confidence when you know your worth. You cannot shake it at all. Number 2, believe that your manager and other key stakeholders know all of the great work that you've been doing. All is the key word here. Think about this for a second. It is probably difficult for you, just you, to remember all of the great work you've done. Let's take 2022, for example. Think about all of the great wins that you had every single week. You might have 1 or 2 big milestones everyone in your organization is going to remember. You may have launched a new program, but there's all those smaller things that you think that everyone knows. They don't. And if you look back and say you track all of your work, say every week you do what I recommend. You track your wins and you track your losses, which I recommend that everyone does that. Say you do that every single week. Now, say you put it in a Google Sheet and you and I are in a Zoom call and I say, without looking at your Google Sheet, tell me what your wins were for November and December. It's going to take you a little bit. So if you can't remember all the great things that you did off the top of your head, how is anyone else going to remember? You cannot believe that your manager has retained all that. They can barely retain all the stuff that they do. Think about if you manage a team. Say you manage 10 people. Picture those 10 people. Can you tell me all of the great things that they've been doing? My point here is that you have to let go of that belief and you have to come up with a strategy. My recommendation is always to have that strategy, to be consistently advocating for yourself, consistently reminding your manager all of the great things that you are doing. And it shouldn't just be at the end of the year during your performance review. Hopefully you have a performance review or some sort of evaluation of your performance for a year. That should happen. If that's not happening, make it happen by putting it on your manager's calendar. The one thing I love to do with my clients is working with them to come up with the strategy that works for them, that works for your manager, works for their manager, coming up with a strategy to make sure that it's known all of the great work that they're doing. When it's known, it's easier to get that promotion. It's easier to get that raise. It's easier to get more responsibility. It also helps for when you're not in the room and your manager, your boss, has to go to bat for you. They have to talk about you and talk about why you deserve something, but you don't get to be there. It's weird, right? So it happens. It's how it works. This podcast is not about how to change that system. That's a whole nother topic. However, it's how it works. So if you're not in the room, you got to make sure that your manager knows all of the great things that you are doing. Number 3, not consistently advocating for yourself. So we talked a little bit about that. And number 2, how you should be advocating for yourself on a consistent basis. So if you're not advocating for yourself, who is? There's a long pause here for a reason, because I wanted you to think about that answer. If you are not advocating for yourself on a consistent basis, who is? You shouldn't be advocating for yourself once or twice a year when you want something. You got to lay that foundation all year long. I've done a few workshops on how to advocate for yourself on a consistent basis. I love to work with my clients on how to advocate for yourself on a consistent basis. Now, I know it can be uncomfortable. I know that you don't want to seem like you're bragging for some of you. Some of you just are like, I just want to get my work done. Do I have to play these games? The answer is yes. I wouldn't consider it a game. I would consider it a strategy that's going to help you go further faster. That's my goal today. Help you go further faster. Coming up with a strategy on what works for you, what's natural for you, what's authentic to you, and how to make you or how to have you advocate for yourself on a consistent basis. This is going to help your career trajectory. This is going to help you go further faster. This is going to help others, like I said in the last one, number 2, talk about you when you're not in the room, but more than just your manager. You want to have a strategy in place to advocate for yourself across the board. Whoever you're talking to, key stakeholders, leaders of other departments, key stakeholders for like programs that you're working on, but then also key stakeholders or other leaders within the organization. Number 4, not setting annual goals. Ooh, I kind of sound a little angry when I say that. I am surprised how many people do not have a system in place for setting goals and evaluating themselves throughout the year, right? And I'm more surprised at the manager or the organization just for not having those things in place, because I don't understand how you can measure your success, how you can measure how well you performed over the course of a year if you don't have any goals in place. So let me just tell you, if you don't have goals in place, set them yourself. Be proactive. Be proactive, go create your goals, and then involve your manager. Here are the goals that I have in place. If you already have goals in place, stay with me here, though. I do have a point about what those goals look like if you do have them every year. But if you don't, come up with some on your own. Involve your manager. Talk about how you're going to track your performance. Talk about what it will look like so you can get to that next level. What do I need to do to get to the next level? If you do set your goals every year, you have your organizational goals. Maybe there's a few that you want to put on the list that are just for you, right? Maybe it is, managing your mindset, how you talk to yourself, quieting your inner mean girl, quieting your self-doubt, well, whatever those are, right? There might be some that you want to keep to yourself, and that's okay. Add those. If you have your goals and you're doing those every year, make sure you visit them at least once a month. Come back to them once a month to evaluate yourself on how you're doing. One fun tactic I use or a tool that I use with my clients is a scorecard. Let's keep it simple. Red, yellow, green. How am I doing? What did I do well this month? What do I need to change next month? So you can do that on your own. Just jot it down. Come up with your own scorecard. And yes, it's a sports related thing, and I didn't mean for it to be, but it is. It is what it is. So come up with your own scorecard and make sure you visit your goals at least once a month to track how you're doing so you know how to course correct if you're not doing well. And if there's something that's working really well, keep doing it. Number 5, not explicitly asking for what you want. I'm just going to say this. I'm going to make it real simple. Do not wait for the promotion to come to you. Now, does that happen? Yes, it happens. Has it ever happened to me? No, but this isn't all about me. Has this ever happened to any of my clients? No, because they wouldn't come to me, right? It doesn't always happen. Now, I do have like the one friend that he just got a promotion, like got a phone call and got a promotion. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. Like sometimes it just happens, but it's not common. The women who are calling me because it's not happening. They just don't come to you. You have to go out and ask for what you want. Otherwise, you will not get it. You have to ask for what you want. So let's not think about the few exceptions to the rule. Let's think about you and saying exactly what you want. You have to know your worth. If you don't know your worth in 2023, you're going to have a hard time. If you're not advocating for yourself in 2023, you're going to have a difficult time. So I want you to understand what you want, know exactly what you want, and go ask for it. Number 6, not analyzing your wins and losses from the year before. So taking some time, how did 2022 go? How are you going to advocate for yourself? How are you going to ask for what you want? How are you going to set goals if you don't even know how you did in 2022? these things take time. I remember when I used to do my performance reviews, and my colleagues and I would be so mad at ourselves for not tracking. We couldn't remember. And it was a scramble, right? You have your job that takes up most of your time. And then when it's time to do your performance review, it's not like your boss says to you or the organization says, okay, cease all work today. Everyone's going to work on their performance reviews. It doesn't happen. You still have your job, and then you have your life, right? Let's not forget about that. And you have to squeeze in this performance review, and it takes up so much time, and you get so mad, and you just kind of sometimes make stuff up. Luckily, I don't have the same manager anymore, so I can say that you just start making stuff up. You're like, oh yeah, I did this, and this is the accomplishment, and you start pulling data, and it just, that you probably missed something that was really good. I'm beating a dead horse here. Oh, I don't like that. I'm not going to say that ever again. But I'm repeating myself, and you hear me talk about tracking, but it's because if you're not analyzing your wins and losses from the previous year, you don't know what you need to continue to do that's working for you. And you also don't know where you need to course correct. That's really important. You don't know where you need to focus on strengthening something that is lacking, something that you could probably easily fix. So, gosh, fix sounds like such a weird word, but that tracks, right? Something that you can easily develop. I like that word better, develop. So that's something I will work on with my clients. Here are your strengths. Here's something you need to develop. It's a weakness, but it doesn't have to be. But you only know that if you are analyzing what you did in the past. Number 7, not paying attention to your thoughts. Your thoughts can derail your career. Let me say that again. If you are multitasking, come back to me, please. Your thoughts can derail your career. How are you talking to yourself every day? How do you view yourself? We're so hard on ourselves. I'm guilty of that all the time. I have to constantly fight with my inner thoughts, which just sounds so weird, right? It sounds like you're talking to yourself. Well, yeah, I have to. I have to stop when I'm having negative thoughts over and over again and beating myself up, because there's this fine line, right, that we want to walk. We want to push ourselves to be better. And to do that, sometimes we get mad or speak to ourselves in a way that is, we think we're being tough and need to work harder. That wasn't good enough. Do better. But then also, if you're always doing that to yourself and you're never focusing on your wins and you're never focusing on some of the great stuff that you do, or you're always comparing yourself to somebody, right? That one person in your organization is just always doing well in your mind. Or somebody you see on LinkedIn, wow, they're 25 and they're already a vice president. I didn't make vice president until I was, 40. I'm clearly just making that up. But you see what I'm saying? The thoughts that you are constantly having are going to come out in your work. So how are you talking to yourself? Because if you don't believe you're good, the work that you do isn't going to be your best work. Doesn't mean your work isn't going to be good. It just means your work isn't going to be your best work. Do you believe in yourself? Do you think that you are good at what you do? Do you remind yourself every single day that you are good at what you do? If you don't, nobody else will. One thing to think about is if you heard your best friend talking to herself or themselves the way you do when you're being tough on yourself, when you're being negative, when you're comparing yourself to others, would you be mad at your best friend? Would you give them a pep talk? Would you remind them what a badass that they are? I'll leave you with that. Number 8, being afraid to make a mistake. It can be paralyzing, being afraid to make a mistake. It can stop you from doing some great work. That fear is so consuming. So in this next year, you have to pay attention to your thoughts and you have to go after what you want and not be afraid to make a mistake. Now I know you're like, yeah, great. That's just, you're just saying the thing. I know that I need to do that, but I can't. And it's difficult. It is very difficult. One thing I'm working on, my clients who are doing the New Year vision strategy for 2023, we're working on those who are afraid to make mistakes. We are working on the why behind that. We're going in deep. We are figuring out why, and we're figuring out what that roadblock is, and we're going to work on ways to avoid it in the future. So you have to spend some time. So if you're not working with the coach, if you don't have a mentor that you can't have this conversation with, or a friend who is, has experience and can help you through this, you're going to have to do some self-reflection. I have a great workbook It's free that you can download. It's called Managing Your Mindset. So you can work on that. You can work on what is going on with you when it comes to making a mistake. Is it holding you back from being great? Number 9, not going after a job because you don't have all the qualifications. Not saying anything that you probably haven't heard, but yet when it comes to going after a job and it's your time, for some reason, all of those things leave our head and we like get laser focused and we have tunnel vision and we forget. We think, well, okay, yeah, I hear that saying a lot. I hear that narrative a lot about you don't need to have all the qualifications. But like for me, for this one, like that, to actually, this doesn't make sense. Like I can't really apply because I really don't have those. No, not the case. Do you know what that organizations are doing now? They are putting in the job description, it's okay. Don't be deterred if you don't have all the qualifications. Let us make that decision. So go for what you want. Go after the job, even if you don't have all the qualifications. A lot of it you can grow into. I know someone, and she asked me for some counsel because I'm related to her. I gave it to her for free. And so we talked and she said, she didn't even need me, to be honest with you. She said to me, I think I'm going to ask for more money. She got an offer. I'm going to ask for more money because this job is new. The industry, not the industry, but the type of work is new. And I'm going to have to learn a lot. I can do the job, but there's going to be a lot of work that I have to put in. I'm going to need more money as a result. I loved that idea. Loved it. And she did it and she got more money. So think about that. She didn't have the knowledge of the industry. It's called the industry. There's a word I'm looking for and I can't think of it. She didn't have that knowledge and she knew she's going to have to do a lot of extra work to catch up, to make sure she was on her A game, to make sure she was doing really well and excelling in her job. And they gave her more money. No, this isn't like one of those urban legends or a myth. This really happened in 2022. I promise you. So go after the job that you want. If you want 2023 to be great, to be your best year ever, avoid the mistake. Well, avoid all the mistakes I just talked about and avoid this one as well. Last one, number 10, not being clear on what matters most to you in your career. I'm going to say that one more time. Not being clear on what matters most to you in your career. So often we're like, I want to move up. I want to go. I want to do this. I want a title increase. I want to be a VP. I deserve it. And then you realize, wait, you might get there, right? Or you might not get it. But then you're upset, but you don't even know why you're upset. You're just frustrated and you don't feel like you have a clear vision of what you want your career to look like. You're just going after titles. And I'm not saying all of you, but you're just going after titles because you want to make sure that you're continuing to grow, but you're not getting jobs because they really don't have anything to do with you, or you're not getting jobs internally because they don't fit into your career, or you haven't been explicit about what you want your career to look like. You haven't talked to your boss about maybe a pivot you want to make or things that are important to you, right? Maybe feedback is really important to you. Maybe you're not getting that in your career. But you don't know this because you haven't taken the time to write down the things that are most important to you. And so then you haven't had a conversation with your manager to ask for the things that you want because you're not even clear. So taking the time to understand what matters most to you in your career. I had a client and she was coming out of college and she wanted to make $70,000 a year. She also wanted to work in sports. Well, those things conflicted. Those things did not work. And I called in like a lot of the big guns on my side from my network just to make sure maybe there is a role. But in the work that she wanted to do, there is not. And so she had to make that decision. But she would have been beating herself up if she was constantly going and applying for jobs and then finding out she was not going to be able to get even close to that salary. So if you can get clear on what you want and what matters most to you in your career, you can save yourself so much time. You do not have to waste time on going after something that might not exist. In my client's case, right? We were able to avoid that. It helped her go further, faster, and find a job that made sense for her, that allowed her to thrive, that allowed her to make the money she wanted to make. And she got that exact number. So take a minute and just make sure you are clear on what matters most to you. If you have a job, I have a workbook that we'll link to in the show notes. I have a workbook, Getting Clear on What Matters Most to You. And it's just thinking about your next move. So you want to do that. And when you're done, if you have a job and you like that job, but you want to grow in it, you can use that as a scorecard. I figured out what matters most to me. Now let me compare those answers to where I am now in my career. Okay, good. Then you're able to say, okay, these 3 things don't line up. I'm not making as much as I want to. I'm not on track to manage people. Right? There can be a whole host of things, and you can focus on those things in the new year. And if you don't have a job, you can use that almost as a scorecard. I guess in both instances, you can use it as a scorecard, but you can use it as a scorecard when you're interviewing. Does the company that I'm interviewing with have a great program in place for professional development? Does the company have a culture that I fit into, that I feel like, I've listed out all the things that are important to me when it comes to company culture. You can compare that. And it also gives you some questions. You can make up questions from that as well. So you can download that on the website. So just scroll in the show notes and that will be there. All right, my friends, we talked about 10 mistakes to avoid in 2023 so you can have your best year yet. Every year should be better than the last. That's what we should be striving for. All right, my friends, this is the last episode of 2022. We'll have some reruns. The team is going to take a break and a well-deserved break. A big thank you to at least one person in particular, my editor and co-producer, Stephanie Young. She is amazing and does incredible work. And she is a primary reason that this podcast comes out week after week. So we're going to take some time off. And you'll have 2 good reruns that I'll air. But until then, you know that I love to hear from you. Just email me, jblake@jahaanblake.com, linked it in the show notes as well. You can DM me if you are an Instagram person or if you are a LinkedIn person, you can send me a message on LinkedIn. Basically, there's 1,000 ways to get in touch with me. You can even text me. My phone number is listed as well. So I love to hear from you. It's what keeps me going when the days get difficult. I know that might sound a little cliche, a little corny, but it is true. And my favorite thing is it's like you guys know when I'm feeling low, not sure how, and I'll just get these texts and it makes me feel like, all right, this is helping and I'm going to keep going. All right, y'all, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the year and an amazing 2023. If you need support, I am here for you. You can sign up for my wait list. If you are listening to this when it drops, the episode drops, there's a wait list. I have a small amount of New Year vision strategy sessions for 2023. I have a small amount of those because obviously we want to do that work sooner rather than later. So that is dropping on the 18th if you're on my list, the 19th to everybody else to grab those spots. It is a great way to help you come up with a strategy and a step-by-step plan for your 2023 and how you're going to crush it. I promise you, this is for you if you feel defeated right now, stuck at work, if you feel like you are no longer growing, if you feel like you have all these thoughts swirling around in your head and you don't know what to do with them, but you know that you are good, you just need a little help to get further, faster in your career, I'm here for it. So you can sign up for that waiting list. The link will be in the show notes as well. And if you have any questions about the program, send me a message. You know how to get in touch with me. All right, Game of Your Own listeners, it was a fantastic 2022. I love all of you for listening every single week. And I know you have a lot of choices on how to spend your time. And I'm so grateful that you spend it with me.